Footy Balls presents the Barassi Line. Australia is known for its deadly animals, but it also has some pretty good football too. I mean, you have Rugby League in the east, Aussie rules to the west and south. You have a Rugby Union World Cup winner 2 times, and a world-class soccer competition in the A-League. Australia is a lot like the United States in that it's very homogenous. Means cultural influences are pretty much the same across the country, except for one thing: football codes. To the east, there's Rugby League Football, a game stripped of its slower rugby union rules, with big-ass tackles and fast-paced diving tries. And to the west and south, Aussie rules football, a game that borrows some elements of rugby, is also incredibly fast-paced, and has elements of hockey, basketball, and drunken brawling. So, why is there a Barassi Line? How strong is it today? And what does this mean for Australia's sporting culture? Well guys, welcome to this video. You know the deal. Like and subscribe. If you like football codes, if you want to go in depth about them, this is the channel for you. I'm going to try to bring you really good content, and it's taken me a long time to make this video, but I would appreciate it if you subscribed. Alright, that's out of the way. What is the Barassi Line? The Barassi Line was first coined in 1978 by a historian named Ian Turner as a way to describe the uniqueness of Australian sporting culture, where the popular code of football changes depending on which side you're on. He named it after Ron Barassi, who was an ardent supporter of getting the game of Aussie rules football to areas where rugby league was dominant. Ron Barassi was a big influence on getting the Victorian Football League team of South Melbourne to move to Sydney when they became the Sydney Swans in 1982. This was the first team to break the Barassi Line in either code. But let's go into Rugby League first. This map shows the Rugby League areas of Australia. We have Queensland, New South Wales, Canberra the capital, and why not, let's include the culturally very similar rugby-loving younger sister New Zealand. That's like Canada for Australians. The major competition for this code is called the NRL, or the National Rugby League. Looking at this map, 10 of the 16 teams are located in the Sydney metropolitan area. Outside of Sydney, there are 3 teams in Queensland, 1 in the capital Canberra, and 1 in New Zealand, and only 1 outside of the Barassi Line. That's right, the 2020 NRL champions, the Melbourne Storm. I mean, there have been attempts to get other teams outside of the Rugby League heartlands. In 1997, the Western Reds were founded in Perth, and the Rams were also founded in 1997 in Adelaide, but they quickly folded within a year. For both teams, the cost of building and sustaining an uncompetitive rugby league team in an area dominated by Aussie rules football resulted in both teams incurring high financial losses. However, these areas do see some of the highest level of rugby league competition there is. It's just not with their own dedicated club. So there's this thing called the State of Origin competition. It's basically New South Wales versus Queensland. It's basically awesome. So you take the players who were born and raised in Queensland, you take the players who were born and raised in New South Wales, and you make a 3-game series out of it. It's kind of like if they were sub-national countries or whatever. So in 2020, Game 1 of this State of Origin was held in Adelaide, Australia, and that's outside of the Barassi Line. Also, the NRL 9s were hosted there as well. In the beginning of 2020, before COVID hit, the NRL also hosted a 9s tournament in Perth, Australia. So there is talk about getting an expansion team, another expansion team other than Melbourne outside of the Barassi Line. The West Coast Pirates, a lower division team playing in Perth, were specifically founded to join the National Rugby League in 2023, but its potential status as an expansion team is still uncertain. So let's talk about Aussie rules football now. For Australian rules football, the dominant states are Tasmania, Western Australia, Southern Australia, Northern Territory, and its cultural homeland, Victoria. The major competition is called the AFL, or Australian Football League. Its homeland is in Victoria, as you can see from this picture. Melbourne, in this regard, is very similar to Sydney, as they host 10 of the 18 teams in the AFL. They have 4 teams outside of the Barassi Line, 2 in New South Wales and 2 in Queensland. I think AFL have been more conscious of expanding to be an all-Australia market. They've changed their name from the Victorian Football League to the Australian Football League in the late 1980s to be known more as a sport for all Australians. This was preceded by the Sydney Swans joining in 1982, the West Coast Eagles and the Brisbane Bears joining later in the 1980s. Although the Brisbane Bears eventually folded, they were followed up by the financially successful Brisbane Lions in 1996. The Lions and the Swans, along with the Gold Coast Suns and the newest expansion team and the team I root for, the Greater Western Sydney Giants, make up the 4 teams across the Barassi Line. Much like the NRL, they also have big events held on the other side. Most importantly, the AFL Grand Final was held in Brisbane in 2020. I know it might be influenced by COVID-19 restrictions, with Brisbane being more of a friendly location in terms of the virus. What's the future of this Barassi Line, and is it still important anymore? Well, obviously, if you look at the amount of teams in Melbourne for the AFL and the amount of teams in Sydney for the NRL, I think it is very important. I have a friend who is from Melbourne, and he said when he went to Sydney, they didn't talk about Aussie rules football at all, which is weird as an American. Currently, the AFL is increasing in popularity and has more television viewers. The AFL has about 7.4 million regular television watchers, compared to the NRL's 6 million. Before COVID, crowd sizes were about double in AFL what they were for the NRL. And even though it's quite clear that the AFL is a bigger sport in terms of a national competition, the NRL does see massive numbers with its awesome State of Origin series. And it's also more of an international game. I mean, Rugby League was invented in Northern England, and they have their own competition in England. They have a competition in France and New Zealand. Aussie rules football is pretty much only popular in Australia. So that's my video. Thank you guys for watching. I got a lot to learn about making videos, about recording, and I'm just going to keep getting better. So like, subscribe. If you're an Australian and you think, wow, this American's making this video about my country, you know, it is what it is. I love both of these sports with all my heart. I think they're awesome, and I saw the amount of videos on YouTube about it, and I had to do something about it. So this is the start of something, and just leave me a comment and let me know what you think, and I'll take it into consideration. Let's start a conversation about this on YouTube, and subscribe because I'm going to be making more of these videos. Hopefully that's a good thing for you guys. And that's all I have to say about that. I'll see you guys.